But at the same time, now we start going into the fact that it was obvious that the military system just couldn't quite cope with my needs. Sure, I was offered help with all sorts of things, from rehab to finding a home, but no one truly understood the needs that are particular to a returning soldier. And neither did I.
No.
So you didn't even know. I mean, how do you know?
But that's what I'm saying.
How can you know?
There's no course for that.
There's no prescription. There's no course.
There's no training. You know, and our military medical system was we have lots of medics. We have doctors for things like sprained ankles and you know, you hurt your back on a ruck march, whatever. Lots of guys and girls to do that. No, you know, we've got physiotherapists, but they've been dealing with tennis elbow and sprained ankles for 40 years. And that's no detriment to them. It's not their fault. It's that's the military that they were in.
And you compare that in the book, you talk about when you went to the Center for Intrepid in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And now you had the American system, which has been, unfortunately, dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands of wounded soldiers for...
At that point, I guess for you guys, about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, 4 or 5 years.
Well, it was 07, yeah. And I guess you guys
so
started in 01,
years.
right after the...
Yep.
I don't know, whenever the guys first went in after the towers dropped.
And so they had experience, and they have a giant amount of money. I mean, this is America, and we do have a lot of money, and they put a lot of money into it. And at the same time, you had some Canadian folks that were like, we don't need that kind of stuff. We don't need those kind of things for rehab.
Right. Well, again, I'm trying to think of a correlation here, but anyway, we had these physiotherapists. It's a trade in the military. Mm-hmm. You're a military physiotherapist, and your job is to rehab guys like me. And I'm telling you, you can't do it, I'm telling you that you're failing, and this is why. So your reaction is going to be, well, I know how to do my job, and I don't. So I don't. At the time, I was furious. In retrospect, they didn't know any better. And that's why I started advocating so hard. I got home, and I said, "This is what we got to do." There's not that many guys like me coming home. I mean, yeah, there's a lot more than there were last year because we're actually at war. The Center for the Intrepid, Walter Reed, and I believe there's one here, the Naval Medical.
Balboa,
is that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Naval Medical Center, Balboa, and there's Bethesda as well. So.
Well, I've heard of 3.
Okay.
San Antonio, Walter Reed, and the one here.
Those are the biggies.
Yeah, those are the ones where most of the traumatic injuries have been going from you guys. So I said, let's start sending a pair of physiotherapists down with, like, for every physiotherapist we send down, or for every 2 casualties we send down, let's send down one of our physiotherapists. And in 6 months, that physiotherapist will get more experience dealing with more injuries with more patients than they could ever hope for on base Petawawa, where 2 Brigade is. Because we're talking the difference between a couple of dozen soldiers getting hurt playing rugby or whatever, or ruck marching, versus actually, like a parade of guys who are getting smashed in IED strikes and whatever was happening. I was standing there, and the guy who ran San Antonio at the time was... He was a Green Beret physiotherapist. So I don't know if he was one and then the other or how it worked, but so he's the lead physiotherapist. And I remember this Marine walked into the room, and he had both legs gone above the knee. So he's on the taller leg prosthetics, and he was blinded by it because he had been burned or whatever. And this guy, he's in full uniform. He, like, screams the guy's name. He's like, Jones! And he tackles him. And they start wrestling. And I'm like, yeah, I want that. Because the hospital I was in, and again, no offense to the hospital, I got great medical care for the standard.
Right. To their capability.
To their
that they
capability.
Knew and understood at that time.
And it's not like it was bad, but it wasn't what would have been best for me. me being a soldier. So I'm like, because I'm in a hospital where it's knee and hip replacements and amputations from diabetes. So it's a lot of older people. I was probably one of the youngest people in the hospital at 30. I was definitely in the best shape. You know, like I remember the first physiotherapy session, she hands me a 4-pound beanbag weight with a strap on it. She says, strap that around your leg and, you know, try and do like, you know, maybe 15 or 20 leg raises if you think you can. And I'm like,
Where's the squat rack?
I'm like, so I strap it. I'm like, 4 pounds. Is that enough? And she's like, oh yeah, we don't want to start too hard. Nice, sweet lady, great person. I loved her.
Doing the best she can.
She's
with
doing what she knows. She's doing what she knows. I strap the thing to my stump and I start doing leg raises. And she comes back like 10 minutes later. She's like, so how many did you get done? I'm like, I don't know.
487.
Maybe 250. She's like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm in shape. It was just meat and bone smash. Like I don't have any other injuries here. But there at San Antonio, the lead therapist is tackling and wrestling with a blind, legless Marine. And I'm like, that's what I need. I need to be around soldiers and people who know how I think. And I can't help, again, and I'm not trying to criticize or be overly detrimental to the results of what came, but imagine if I had had that treatment. What, you know, people would say, oh, Jody, you did fine. You did great. You're the poster boy. Imagine if I had been in San Antonio, you know, where
could have been faster, you think?
Not, well, the level of expectation where I was very, very low. So they didn't like, so if I had been in San Antonio, they'd been like, oh, no, you will be walking by March. You will do this. And whereas where I was, because that's how they do it, it's like, well, we'll see where you're at, you know, and this and that. And and there was no one for me to mentor under or be, you know, like there was no one
to be compared to.
Or to be compared to.
Okay, look at this guy over here. He's grappling with another dude, even though he's blind, is missing a leg.
Yeah. And
are you ready to get it on?
Yeah. You know, another guy came in, I think he was a Marine too, and he was wearing just like a T-shirt.
Yeah. And
the same guy's like, hey, where's your issue PT kit?
The Marine Corps doesn't play around.
And well, this was the Green Beret guy, right?
Oh,
but he's
okay. Roger,
because they're all it's a mixed force, right?
Yeah.
There's Air Force, Navy, Marine, whoever's there. There was a Navy, I believe she was Navy EOD who'd had her arms blown off, and she was recently in that Range 15 movie.
15, right.
I think it's the same girl. I've only met one girl who had both her arms blown off by an IED, but so I imagine it's her. But anyway, he expected you to be a soldier, regardless of what happened to you. You're going to maintain that persona, son. And I was like, yeah, because I could feel myself slipping at this other place because there's no expectations, you know. And you can only self-motivate. And having never had my legs blown off before, I could only self-motivate to a point for so long. And be the guy, be my own drill sergeant, and be my own inspector. And
there's a reason, and I say this all the time, there's a reason why the best athletes in the world have coaches.
Yeah.
That's the fact. It's because somebody has got to like show you the way.
Yeah.
And furthermore, you can only push yourself so hard. I know for a fact you can only push yourself to 107%. A coach is going to get you to 117%. They're going to push you a little bit harder. They'll have no mercy. And so that's what you need. That's what everybody needs.
Yeah. You know, and so, but again, I try to give credit where credit's due and give, you know, people were worried. When I wrote the book, there were people I heard that were worried. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to shit on anyone, and I don't want it to seem like I'm blaming anyone for anything. I put myself there. I'm the one that wanted to be in that spot to step on that landmine. My only expectation was that others would have put the preparation into their mission as I put into mine. And I do feel that there were some at very high levels that maybe didn't take things as seriously as they should have, or realized the consequences of what was coming, and take best practices from places like Walter Reed, San Antonio. Because when I said, send me to San Antonio and send a Canadian physiotherapist with me, and he or she's going to learn in the 3 or 6 months I'm there more than she will in 20 years at any Canadian base. It was, oh, well, we appreciate that, Midik, but we're working on a Canadian solution. And I was like, well, that's going to be awesome once you figure out whatever the fuck that is.
What about me?
I'm talking about
now?
right this second. We have a facility willing to take us.
So did they send PTs down there?
No. Because here's the backroom stuff. The politics. Jody, what would the civilians think if we were sending our soldiers to a different country's medical centers? When we got hospitals right here. Now, again, what we were getting at the hospital was not bad care.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Do you understand the distinction I'm trying to make?
No,
okay.
It was the best care to the capability and the knowledge and understanding that they had, not only of their job, but of the people that they were working with.
Yeah.
In other words, if you got a 72-year-old diabetic that has an amputation, the 4-pound weight is good, and that you can try and transfer that over to Jody Midik, who just got off the battlefield 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He's a different animal.
Yeah.
Probably
and
because
needs
you're
to
an
be treated.
exception too, right? To like what they're trained and what they're really good at caring for. You come in and this isn't really typical that we all have to deal with.
Yeah.
So why are we going to change our whole system?
Well,
to
yeah,
accommodate this
exactly.
exception
And
situation?
but even things like, I remember the first couple nurses that came into my room. They were like, "Oh, hey, honey, what happened? Car accident? Were you on a motorcycle? You're on a motor?
Really?
Well, losing your foot is very typical of a motorcycle accident.
But they didn't.
And I'm like, oh, I stepped on a landmine in Afghanistan. Do we even have soldiers in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
And I was like,
So hence this part of the book. Ironically, one of the biggest emotional problems I had to deal with was the anger I felt towards a medical system that did not seem to be able to respond appropriately to my needs.